So in this video we're going to look at solving quadratic equations. In a previous video we looked at factorising quadratic equations. Solving is very similar in its process, we just do a little bit extra at the end. So we have a quadratic equation here and we're going to start off by factorising the left hand side. So as usual I'll open up the double brackets and this time I'll make them equal to 0 because this is an equation. I will put in my x in each bracket, and now as before we will look for a pair of numbers which multiply to give plus 5. So I list them out. There's 1 and 5, and the other one is minus 1 and minus 5. And of these pairs they have to add to give positive 6, and clearly plus 1 and plus 5 is the pair which adds to give positive 6. So we've factorized this side of the equation now. Okay, now to solve we've got to think about what this equation actually means. So we've got one bracket, we multiply it by the other bracket and we get 0. So the only way you can multiply two things together and make it equal to 0 is if one of those two things or both of those two things equal 0 themselves. So either the first bracket or the second bracket equals 0. So let's just assume for now that the first bracket equals 0. So let's assume x plus 1 equals 0. Or if x plus 1 equals 0, then x is going to be equal to minus 1. So that's our first solution. And we got that solution again by making that first bracket equal to 0, x plus 1 equals 0, and therefore x equals minus 1. Our second solution will be assuming x plus 5 equals 0. So x plus 5 equals 0, and then x equals minus 5. So that's our second solution, and if you were to plug any of x equals minus 1 or x equals minus 5 into this original equation, you'd find it came to 0. So this is our solutions: x equals minus 1, x equals minus 5. So let's look at another example now. Again, we'll open up the brackets, make them equal to 0, pair of numbers which multiply to give minus 10. So we can write 10 and minus 1. We can write minus 10 and positive 1, 5 and minus 2, minus 5 and plus 2. And of those four combinations, we need them to add up to give minus 3. And of those, minus 5 and minus 2 are our solutions here. So x minus 5, x plus 2. So either x minus 5 equals 0 or x plus 2 equals 0 for those two things to multiply to make 0. So if x minus 5 equals 0, then x will equal positive 5, and if x plus 2 equals 0, then x will be equal to minus 2. So those are our two solutions. And again, what you'll find is if you plug in x equals minus 5 or x equals minus 2 into this original equation, you would find that it came to 0. And the final example we can go through is something slightly different. Now you'll notice the difference here is that one side is equal to 6 now rather than 0. So the usefulness of making one side equal to 0 is that you know you can just make the brackets equal to 0 and you can solve it. When it's equal to 6, there's an infinite amount of numbers which multiply together to give 6. So it's almost useless to have this equation. So what you need to do is make one side equal to 0. So to do that, we're going to subtract 6 from both sides. So the left hand side will be x squared minus 4x, and it's going to be now plus 1 minus 6, which will come to minus 5. And on the right hand side of the equation, 6 minus 6 will give us 0. So now we've got in the form we want. We can do the usual thing, open up the brackets, make them equal 0, pair of numbers which multiply to give minus 5, so minus 5 and 1, minus 1 and 5, and they have to add to give negative 4, so it's going to be minus 5 and positive 1, so we fill those in the brackets, x minus 5, x plus 1. So the solution for this one, x minus 5 equals 0, x equals 5. This is our first solution. Our second bracket, if x plus 1 equals 0, x will be equal to minus 1. So that's our second solution.